Now, Ghana's Finance Minister, Amin Adam, has observed that the country's economy is on a positive economic trajectory. This with decreasing inflation, which he sees as a sign that the economy is improving. He attributed the stronger than expected economy to effective policy measures. Ridle Markus, who's sub-Saharan African and macroeconomist at Absa CIB, joins us now to look into Ghana and its recovery story. Ridle, always a pleasure and a good afternoon to you.
Good afternoon, Altham.
Ridle, since Ghana defaulted on most of its external debt in 2022, it's been quite a bumpy ride. Let's just paint that picture of, what it's been like in terms of inflation as well as interest rates.
Yes, so since the default at the end of 2022, we saw inflation shot up to at the end of 22 to 54%. But that has since come down due to a combination of reasons. One, of course, was just very high base effects. But two, and more importantly, of course, was the more stable exchange rate that we saw through 2023. Massive depreciation in the exchange rate there, and that helped the inflationary pressures as well. So inflation has now, of course, come down to 25%, and we expect it to move even further down. But of course, we have seen renewed inflationary pressures building up in Ghana. The currency has once again, I think, because of a shortage of US dollars, maybe related to the debt restructuring delays, the weaker cocoa output, etc., we've seen the currency depreciating probably closer to 18% against the US dollar in the past couple of months alone since the beginning of the year. So we have seen prices locally of fuel going up. And of course, it also means that the downward trend in inflation will probably be somewhat slower than we initially anticipated. The MPC of the Bank of Ghana did cut the policy rate by 29%, super high lending rates of 30% before that. But now it's been stuck at 29% since January. And we don't think that they're going to cut soon, given the weaker currency.
I must ask you about what is causing this, sudden surge in inflation again, Ridle, when it was on a moderating trajectory.
Yeah, once again, the inflation spiked up to 25.8% after being less than 24% not too long ago. Currency has driven it, but also, again, base effects coming into play. I don't think we should be too worried about that. Monetary policy, sufficiently tight. As I said, policy rates 29%. But the main concern now, of course, is around the weaker currency. As I said, currency close to 20% down year to date alone against the US dollar. And we think that there's potential that it could even, weaken even further. It is an election year. Ghana is most likely going to spend more money into the elections. That normally also reflects in a weaker currency. So inflationary pressures is definitely evident in that economy. And we don't think that the MPC meeting that starts this week and the policy rate announcement that is next week, Monday, that we'll see, for the time being at least, further policy rate cuts. It is likely, though, that we could see further cuts in the second half of the year. Just back on the economy. The economy is continuing to recover, but it's very uneven. And as you can imagine, the latest inflationary issues present, of course, a bit of a headwind, and it's just going to, slow the recovery a little bit more.
Let's also talk about, Ghana being the second largest producer of cocoa, on the continent. And if that at all, is playing into the state of the economy right now, in my mind, it should be a big part of the recovery story. But of course, the whole sector isn't in the best of places.
Yeah, so 2 seasons ago, of course, cocoa output was well over 1 million tons, but it has since started to decrease. They've got swollen shoot disease, for example, also adverse weather conditions, drier conditions than normal. So both Ivory Coast, which is, of course, the world's largest producer, and Ghana, and even other markets, prominent cocoa producing markets such as Nigeria, Cameroon, etc., they've also been experiencing some dry weather conditions. And as a result, shortage of supply of cocoa has seen the price of cocoa shot up initially over $10,000 a ton. but now it's just short of that level, probably closer to 8,000. So farmers are benefiting from the higher price, but of course it doesn't help that the yields are much lower. And that's, of course, a long-term challenge that Ghana has to try and improve cocoa production. Gold is, of course, doing very well, given that Ghana is probably the continent's largest gold producer.
I also want to speak about what we do know in terms of Ghana trying to strike a deal with bondholders, Ridle. We know that that's also a big part of, what's impacting the economy right now, maybe even confidence in the long-term sustainability of it.
Yeah, of course, Ghana has got an IMF program. They're working towards longer-term debt sustainability and also fiscal sustainability. So there are still some talks with the Eurobond holders. There's talks with other private creditors. They're trying to resolve the debt restructuring issue. They already completed the domestic debt restructuring. But of course, I don't think anyone would want to invest in that market anytime soon, given that the external debt restructuring is continuing. But as you pointed out, it would, once that is completed, hopefully before the end of the year, it would boost confidence in that economy, though, of course, the election presents a bit of a risk, especially if there's some fiscal slippages. So I think 2024 is going to be a bit of a tough year for Ghana, but we still believe that growth of close to 4% is possible compared to 2.9% last year. And of course, we're looking forward to deeper into the year that they will actually start cutting policy rates, which will further support that economy.
Well, Ridle, all we have time for today. Thank you so much for taking us through this one this afternoon. That was SSA Macroeconomist at Absa CIB, Ridle Markus.